Hello, this is Bradley Pierce here, president of Abolish Abortion Texas. Just here to give you a recap of the Republican Party of Texas state convention that we were all at last week. And I am joined by our vice president, J.R. Haas. Hello, J.R.
Hey, Brad.
And by board member, Wes Thomas. Hey, Wes.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Well, we were all there last week for the Republican Party of Texas convention is down in Houston. It's really started on Monday. Their committee meetings that started on Monday that started to build kind of the recommendations that were going to be made to the report or to the body of delegates at the convention. As the committees met, the platform committee, rules committee, legislative priorities committee, and other committees that met to make recommendations to the body of delegates. And then on Thursday, the delegates convened. I think there were ultimately ended up being about 5,500 delegates total who arrived, and I think there were lots of other people there as well. Probably around 7,000 people there altogether, and so that all happened last week, and we were privileged to be a part of that. And it's something that we've been involved in since 2016, as we have been pushing for abolition to be the official position of the Republican Party of Texas. And really, we've been, by the grace of God, been successful from the very beginning. In 2016, we got abolition as a legislative priority of the Republican Party of Texas. It's been a legislative priority ever since then. This last convention in 2018, we were able to add the word equal protection into the legislative priority, and we were fighting to keep that. There are lots of people trying to come and to take that out at this convention and to add in other language to water down the legislative priority. And we were fighting to keep it strong, make it stronger, and then also fighting for our platform planks and our Republican Party priorities to keep those strong, to make them even stronger. So that's what we were doing this last week, and we weren't alone in that. We were joined by many delegates from across the state, hundreds of them there specifically, who wanted to come to support abolishing abortion. Thousands more who supported abolishing abortion. And on top of that, we had numerous volunteers who came throughout the week and served in one way or the end or another. Over 50 people who came and volunteered and served and worked hard. And of course, Jr. and Wes were there as well, speaking and fighting for abolition. So we want to talk about, kind of go through what happened last week, what we were able to be involved in, what the committees did, what the delegates did, what the final result was, and what that means for the cause of abolishing abortion in Texas. So, Jared, you want to get started? Just kind of starting. Tell us about the committees that were meeting at the beginning of the week, and kind of what that process looks like, and why that's so important.
Yeah. So thanks, Brad. So for those that are not familiar, the convention kind of runs for, what is it, 6 days, Monday through Saturday. The first 3 days are days where three committees are meeting. The committees that are meeting are the Rules, Platform, and Legislative Priorities Committee. And this is their temporary committee meetings. And we were very grateful this time to have well over 50 delegates sign up to come and advocate and go through the whole process from their precinct to their senatorial district, all the way to state convention, and testify before the resolution committees at each level and bring the resolution on abolishing abortion all the way up. And so, many showed up later in the week for the general convention, but we were very grateful for all those who were able to show up the first 3 days, because many people don't realize that the lion's share of the work really begins on Monday. These committees are taking and aggregating all these resolutions and making decisions real early on. They're taking a lot of resolutions from across the state, and it's really based on the 31 committee members as to what each committee is going to do. Our primary focus was mostly on platform and legislative priority, as you mentioned, Brad, we wanted to maintain our legislative priority language and keep it as one of the top 15 legislative priorities. Later in the week, the Legislative Priority Committee is tasked with delivering a report of 15 legislative priorities that will be affirmed by the permanent committee later, and then it will eventually make it to the General Assembly or General Session floor, where approximately, I think, 5,000 delegates voted on it to pick the top 8. The other task we had was to go and testify before the platform committees. And early in the week for platform, there's if you have not read the Republican Party of Texas platform, it has nearly 300 planks. And so they divide the platform up into various sections. Among those are state affairs and criminal and civil justice, education, health and human services. Really, they try to mirror the committees in I believe it's the state Senate, the Texas legislature. And so we were able to go really on Monday and Tuesday and speak to the subcommittees and try to improve language in some planks, and then add language, and even attempt to strike language that was inconsistent with equal protection. And so we did that, and there were I guess it was Wednesday when everything kind of consolidated. These subcommittees would come together and then work in what's called the Committee of the Whole. And at that point, they would begin to deliberate and make decisions around, decisions that were made in the subcommittees that were then presented to the full committee. And those decisions would be affirmed or voted against. So that kind of worked us through the first 3 days. I will say, really narrowing in on the Legislative Priorities Committee is where we spent a lot of our time. We'd like to have spent more time with platform, but really we ended up focusing the lion's share of our time on legislative priorities. And, it was really interesting. The committee was pretty favorable, I would say, at least 50-50, friendly to equal protection and abolition. Because, as I mentioned, it wasn't our first convention to present abolition, and it was probably our first convention to really focus on the value of human life in the womb, and really asserting that all men are created equal and deserve equal protection under the law, and that means even our preborn neighbor from fertilization. And so while there were a few on the Legislative Priorities Committee that were asking challenging questions, we won over at least 2/3 of the committee. And I will say, Brad, and we may talk more about this later, but your testimony went a long way. I want to say not only did you get your 2 minutes to speak, but you had been questioned for about 18 minutes, if you didn't realize it. But the committee kept bringing you back to, so you want to penalize the mother, you want to punish the mother, you want to so you're saying you want to punish the mother, Brad? And you did a very good job of really going back to the first thing, which is where do we derive value, and it's about life. It's about the value of our preborn neighbor and protecting that life. And anyways, we can dive more into that, but I would say that it was through not only your testimony, mine, Wes, but also in temporary committee and later in permanent committee, we probably had well over, I would say, 40 delegates that testified. I know in permanent committee, we had 20 testify within about 2.5 hour period, which the next issue that had even close to the next highest number of testimonies was on the category of, I think it was equal parenting,
parental rights,
and parental rights. So yeah, we're so grateful for the delegates who sacrificed the time to come and speak and advocate and share stories. I particularly will thank two individuals that come to mind, just Jill Robbins and Jennifer Madrid. Their testimonies are so strong. Having been, post-aborted mothers who have seen the grace of Christ demonstrated in their life, and rest in that forgiveness. But at the same time, they show up and they kind of break this facade of women always being the victim that many try to present. And they said, hey, look, I wish somebody would have told me it was illegal and that it was murder to kill my children, because I never would have done it. And so, those words were so powerful, and just communicating to the committee that, look, like, yeah, these women have been discipled for 40, 50 years, that life is not valuable, but the way we teach them, we outlaw it. So it was very good. But yeah, I don't know if you want to go into some of the testimony there, or.
Yeah. So the Mondays was the kind of the opening, and so kind of the way that it works is you have a committee that meets Monday through Wednesday, and then when all the delegates come in, they confirm the members of that committee, which is then called the permanent committee, that meets on Thursday, finalizes the recommendations in a report to the body, which is then voted on Saturday at the end of the week, and voted on and amended and tweaked and that sort of thing. So our first opportunity to speak really came on that Monday, and it was, by the time they got to us, it was about I think 9:30 at night or something like that, and so we had been there all day, having great conversations. But it was our first opportunity to get to speak to the committee as a whole there that evening. And it was, there had already been some people speak in favor of abolition. And then when I was able to speak, I was just blown away by the reception that we had. Because again, we've been speaking at these committees, now this is our fourth convention to do this. And we've done this many, many times. Sometimes we've even been invited and been able to speak, for, 10 or 15 minutes. And, this one, we didn't get extra time, in our initial testimony, but the committee then really for the very first time was really just very ready to engage and to talk about it and ask, very good questions. And a lot of them they weren't just asking questions, they were advocating for it. Right. And we're talking about equal protection, something that, we're simply, all we're saying is that the same laws that protect people before they're born should protect people after they're born, right? That's all that equal protection means. The same laws that protect these people should protect these people, because we're all created equal, because we're all made in the image of God. So that's what we were there advocating for, and and like never before, we saw people just get it. They understood it. We saw members of the committee from all over the state, advocating in favor of it. There's one member of the committee who's a former prosecutor. He was, explaining to the committee why this was logical and legal and why this made sense. And, a lot of it, I got to stand up there and answer questions, which was great. But I really got to just witness them doing a lot of advocacy. And anyways, we've never gotten a reception that warm and friendly and supportive ever before. And so that started the week off on a great foot.
Yeah, I'll just add that one of the things the temporary committee did is they ranked the top, like they voted on probably 40 different legislative priorities and kind of got their short list of 15. And then they voted once more on Wednesday evening to re-rank the priorities after they had deliberated and fine-tuned some of the language. And at that time, I don't recall, I think we were abolition of abortion was fourth at that time. And then it was the next day, Thursday, where we met in our senatorial district caucuses and elected our permanent committee members. And I was fortunate again to be able to serve on the Legislative Priorities Committee for that permanent committee. And what's interesting is permanent committee, it sounds more formal, but it's actually a much shorter period of time compared to temporary committee. Temporary committee is almost 3 full days from 8, 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 p.m. at night. And permanent committee really runs from probably 3 o'clock till 10 o'clock. So within that time, we got to hear some testimony and deliberate a little bit more before re-ranking the legislative priorities. And coming out of that, the committee ranked the abolition of abortion in Texas in 3rd. So, Brad, I think if you're up for it, I'd like to share one testimony or one motion that was brought. And one of the reasons I was glad to have served on the Legislative Priority Committee, we had one of 2 or 3 committee members that really were, kept stressing, hey, are you trying to penalize the mother? Are you trying to punish the mother? And up until the last minute, we had one committee member who tried to strike the equal protection language. So we wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys and then speak about it.
Yeah, let me just play that right now.
Go to abolish abortion. And the language we have here, people, I want you to know I am pro-life, etc. I just question if we can. It's great to pass this here, but can we ever get it past the public? I've talked about the ladies that have been raised, 2 generations been raised that abortion's okay. But have you thought about it in vitro? This means, and I know many Christian families, they don't realize that they're killing the babies in the in vitro process, but we are saying that the in vitro is now illegal and that they will be subject to punishment because they kill the embryos. Yeah, the baby. And I agree. But I'm telling you, when that's what they're going to use against this, and so many Republican women, so many Republican men, so many Christians, that's a practice they use. They have no idea. And I just think it's such a shock that we're going to lose ground. So I offer that for consideration. I agree with it 100%, but we still got to get bills passed and save lives the best way we can. And so I want you to consider the in vitro part of it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, my motion is equal protection of the laws. I guess we struck. I hate that. But I want you to know I'm saying because of the in vitro process and what that does to families currently.
Can I speak to that
Yes,
in vitro
yes,
for a
please.
second? So it does not make in vitro fertilization illegal. It does mean we have to treat them as humans and bring a humane ethic to how we perform in vitro fertilization. So if you were to impregnate or fertilize 5 eggs, then you would, give hormones to the woman to make her body believe she's pregnant. You would try to implant the first 3 eggs, and if one of those took, you would have 2 lives that you still have to treat with dignity and respect, and you couldn't terminate. But you would be very cautious when creating, say, 40 lives and just discarding them. So it just brings a protection for even those children in the
Mr. Chair.
But what do you do with those
SDT.
other eggs?
I'm sorry, SDT.
you do adoption.
Every pro-life group that testified before us bragged on the language we have.
I withdraw my motion.
Motion's been withdrawn. Second. All those in favor of adopting, thank you. Opposed?
Right. So we saw there. So JR had actually been appointed to the committee, and you heard him kind of dialoguing with the gentleman who's making the motion, and you hear the gentleman, he's talking about he's talking about in vitro and this is going to affect in vitro and it's going to make it illegal, he says. And then I think it's JR who says, like, is there emotion there? You have emotion. What are you trying to do here? And the man said, like, well, I guess we need to take out equal protection of the laws. Man, I hate that. And anyway, JR, what are you thinking right then? What's going through your mind as you're dealing with that?
First of all, I'm thinking I already knew the mood of the committee, but I think he realized he ran into a gun battle with the knife because you could hear him. He's like, we're gonna have all the embryos and yeah, we're gonna kill the and I fed him a word. I was like, the babies, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna kill the babies. And you could it was one of those things where you're like, I don't think he realized what he's saying here. And even as he started to rationalize it, he really lost. I mean, the main thing is he truly believes the dogma that the mothers are a victim, and he's struggling to reconcile the fact that this preborn person should or deserves equal protection. And that is a big hill to overcome. And by the grace of God, what was so glorious there is you heard, I just kind of refuted his claim against IVF, and praise God, the reason that was so fresh in my mind was because I had just been in Louisiana, what was it, a month and a half, 2 months ago, where the Louisiana state legislature came and basically used that as an argument to kill the bill to abolish abortion in the state of Louisiana. And it was so egregious that they argued that, because it's not only because they argued it, but the way they argued it. They're like, this is such a life-giving thing. And when you really consider what this is, sure, there's a woman that desires to have a biological child, but at what expense, right? I mean, so as people are not very educated on the topic of in vitro fertilization, it's like the worst argument. It's like, let's go slaughter a bunch of babies so that the mother can have her wish to have one biological child. And and then just to refute them and say, look, we're not saying we can't use technology to facilitate this, but we need to be responsible, and treat each of these fertilized eggs as humans.
Yeah, and I think what we said in Louisiana and what you were saying here is that no, it wouldn't make in vitro fertilization illegal at all. You can still continue to do in vitro fertilization, but you have to do it in a way that does not intentionally destroy any of the babies, as you put it there, right? So you fertilize them and you attempt to implant them, and if there's a miscarriage or whatever, well, there's nothing illegal about that, right? That's an accidental, thing. That the goal there was to help foster and create life, so there's nothing illegal about that. It's only when the IVF doctor then takes the unused embryos and then destroys them, or sells them or donates them to science, and then they get destroyed, or experiments performed on them. Well, at that point, that's what would be made illegal. And how do we get all that from this phrase equal protection? Wes, we've been talking with JR here for a while, but I mean, Wes, why does the phrase equal protection of the laws have anything whatsoever to do with that anyway?
One of the phrases he said was, we'd be losing ground. Did you notice that? I can't tell you how many times I heard that week. The idea, the pragmatism of, hey, we're going to, following the Constitution is going to make us lose ground. Following our principles that say that life begins at fertilization, guys, we're going to lose ground. And I can't honestly wrap my head around that. That's stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one thing that was a huge success this week was that we had a pamphlet, a 12-page pamphlet that we passed out, or our faithful and dedicated and indefatigable volunteers passed out the whole week. Over 7,000 of these pamphlets that were passed out. Let me just show you a little bit of this. This was the front of the pamphlet, and then you open it up, and then you saw our our resolution that we were pushing for, and then really what we're talking about here. Why is equal protection? What's it really about? Again, it's constitutional, like Wes just said. No state shall deny to any person the equal protection of the laws. Right. So we're just calling for following the Constitution. The Supreme Court even said this in the Roe decision. They said, Texas law at the time was not providing equal protection. It said there are inconsistencies between 14th Amendment status and the typical abortion statute. If the fetus is a person, why is a woman not a principal or an accomplice? If the fetus is a person, may the penalties be different? And, this kind of ultimately goes back to God's law. You shall love your neighbor. How? As yourself. Okay, protect them with the same laws to protect you. The golden rule. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets, Jesus said. And then God forbids showing partiality in judgment and commands us to do justice for the fatherless. So, this is what equal protection is. The laws that protect me should also protect me before I was born, right? The laws that protect all of us born people should also protect people before they're born. Equal protection isn't about creating new laws or special laws or singling out anybody, or anything like that. It's simply saying there are laws already on the books that prohibit homicide. Those protect my life, thankfully, from people who might be, want to cause me injury or death. Let's use those same laws, and let's just take away the abortion exception that currently exists in our laws, so that way those laws now protect people before they're born. That's really all we're talking about here.
Yeah. Equal protection means that all people, all humans are valuable and should be protected equally, regardless of any sort of classification that you can put them in, right? If you're going to classify them by skin color, well, you should not be able to deny one skin color of person the laws that protect a different skin color person. You should not be able to do that because you're devaluing one classification against the other. You should not be able to devalue those who are a certain age. The elderly should not be devalued because of their advanced age. The young should not be devalued because of their young age. Likewise, the preborn should not be dehumanized and devalued because they're simply not born yet. And that's equal protection. Human life is valuable. It should be protected at every stage, no matter the classification.
Yeah, so we saw, so this gentleman's trying to take that out of there, which is kind of one of these, like, well, wait, the Constitution requires equal protections for every person. So are you saying a fetus is not a person, or are you saying we should violate the Constitution? And we saw this. We this was already coming. This happened in subcommittees in the legislative priorities where there was a very small number of people who were trying to remove equal protection. One of the pro-life groups was there, and they were encouraging removing of equal protection, and we were able to speak there. And really, we didn't have to do a whole lot because the committee really got it, like we had never seen before. And so you saw that play out right there on that clip. That this gentleman, he's saying, "Hey, let's strike equal protection." He at the end of it, I mean, he's all alone. It looks like,
Yeah.
JR, what was that like?
I mean, I just shut up, and the committee just like they were like, I call the question, they voted him, right away. Yeah, they, as I mentioned,
And
he surrendered. He's like, okay, I withdraw my motion.
Yeah, that reminds me of the last session. That to me, there were two defining moments, like from both the last time we did this and this time, and they're very similar, same exact topic, right?
Yeah.
There was the time someone tried to strike equal protection last time, and JR was like, basically said what you just said, Brad. It's like,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute. Are you saying the fetus isn't a person? Or are you saying we should not follow the Constitution? Which one is it? And what did the guy do? He said, motion withdrawn. And then what happened this time? Exact same thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
They
And-
are like, you mean the babies?
Yeah.
And it's motion withdrawn. It's like, yeah,
And-
you're right. You wrecked my position.
I think, this is kind of goes to a broader topic, and we'll get into this further probably later on. But, pro-life abolitionists alike, the term abolition is widely used now.
Yes.
The question of what does that mean? I have a Princess Bride coming to mind. I don't think that word means what you think it means. And
I saw an email today, JR, from a pro-life group, and they were sharing pictures that says abolish abortion, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But these are the same pro-life groups that say, you know what, the culture's not quite ready for the Constitution.
Well, and that's why, when people say abolish abortion, what most people hear is make all abortion illegal. That's kind of what abolish abortion means, which is why we're called Abolish Abortion Texas, because that's what we want, to make all abortion illegal. What some people are using it to mean is make abortion illegal for, make assisted abortions illegal.
Sometimes.
Right? Make assisted abortions illegal most of the time.
if they don't have a heart,
But which then, like, okay, well then,
they do have a
wait,
heart.
are you legalizing unassisted abortions? Are you saying a woman has a right to an abortion as long as she just does it herself? As long as she's the one, she can have people around her, but as long as she's the one actually who takes the medicine or uses the coat hanger or whatever, are we saying that we should just make that legal? And unfortunately, yeah, that's been the position of the pro-life movement. In fact, let me just show you one of our more provocative items from our pamphlet here, and that was the not sure if you agree with the resolution to abolish abortion. Take the test to find out. Yeah, it's really pretty simple. Do you believe human life begins at fertilization, that is conception? If no, hey, you agree with the pro-abortion supporters. If yes, do you believe a preborn child is a person? If no, hey, you again agree with pro-abortion supporters. If yes, then the next question is, do you believe that every woman in Texas should be legally permitted to willfully kill as many of her own preborn children as she wants without the possibility of any legal consequences? I say no to that, right? But many would say, well, that may not be how I would put it, but yes. Unfortunately, that position is not only a pro-abortion position, but it's also the position held by most of the pro-life political establishment, and it denies equal protection. So that's why, we don't agree with that. We believe that children should be equally protected from the womb. We had that in our pamphlet. And, and that raises a number of questions, that we saw in the committee, and encourage people to go watch our testimony on, you can find it on our YouTube page. But, a lot of it we had already dealt with. We have our pamphlet, we have an FAQ in our pamphlet. Does an abolition bill require the death penalty? No. Would an abolition bill support prosecution of a woman forced into an abortion? No. What about doctors dealing with life-threatening medical emergencies? Would an abolition bill prevent them? No. Would an abolition bill allow women to be prosecuted for prior abortions they had before the law went into effect? No. Would an abolition bill allow women to be prosecuted for miscarriages? No. Would an abolition bill ban IVF for contraception? One of the, that we saw right here on this committee, and the answer is no. So we dealt with a lot of, we knew what's coming. We knew what people were going to be arguing and bringing up, and trying to use, and thankfully we had prepared all that. We had that ready to go and had that in our pamphlet. And one thing that we had, this year that we had not had before, we certainly had the support of many people from around the country, but there was someone who's recently come out and publicly supported what we call, the concept of equal protection, and that is Abby Johnson. Many may know her. She's a former Planned Parenthood clinic director in the College Station area, who, by the grace of God, repented of that, came out of that, and became a pro-life advocate. And now she's advocating for equal protection and for due process. That every case, we shouldn't just say every woman gets a free pass, no matter how egregious her conduct, but due process. That is, every case should be considered on a case by case basis. And she gave us permission. She posted a Facebook post here just a couple months ago, or a month and a half ago, and she gave us permission to include that in our pamphlet. So we were able to include that, reprinted with her permission in our pamphlet, so people were able to see that. And not only was her testimony powerful because she's a former Planned Parenthood clinic director, but it's also powerful because, as she says, she's actually had 2 abortions herself, and she believes that it should be illegal for mothers, and that there should be legal consequences with due process. And so that was something, that I think that helped open a lot of eyes as well at this convention, and we were grateful for her for allowing us to reprint that in our pamphlet. So we go ahead, Jr.
So Brad, I just want to speak real quick to that, the distinction here, because more and more, people want to group us. They want to use the term abolition. They think we're all doing the same thing. But I would say if I could clearly distinguish between what most pro-life establishment groups are doing versus what abolitionists are attempting to do, is we're not seeking first to save the most lives. We're seeking first pro-biblical justice. We want to honor the Lord. We want to call sin, sin, good, good, and evil, evil. And then knowing that our house is being built on a firm foundation, right? Our strategy, our, the means with which we're walking to outlaw abortion is grounded in the power of the word of God, and not just in man's wisdom on how we can fool people into not killing their children. Going back to this point that he was saying, well, we have generations of women that have just been misled. And I think in your testimony, Bradley, you're like, well, what do? We change the law. The law is a tutor. Again, we're leaning on the word of God to inform and give us strategy and guide our way. Like, we want to establish justice, and that is going to inform people and teach, hopefully, young ladies that killing your children is murder, and hopefully deter them from doing that. And so, yes, we believe that is going to save lives, but we're not trying to fool people into saving lives while, conceding the main point, which is it's murder to kill your children.
Yeah.
If you believe women have been lied to about the nature of reality when it comes to abortion, the last thing that you should be doing is advocating for laws and policy that continue to lie to them. Exactly.
Yeah, I was talking with one person there that approached our volunteers, and we're talking, and I came into the conversation, and this is someone who runs a pregnancy resource center and does a lot of good work, and and she was kind of making the same arguments, and I said exactly that. There are many that have been indoctrinated. What do you think would be the best thing, the best way to quickly educate them that, what, the fetus is a person, and what, it's wrong to do that. Quickest way to do that is to pass a law that does that. And then everybody's going to know about it. It's going to, probably take a few months before it goes into effect, and everybody's going to know about it very, very quickly. And we're going to be treating people who aren't born the same way, protecting them the same way we treat people who are. And then everybody's going to learn real fast. You know what? This is illegal. It's a crime. And they're treating a baby like they are a person. Maybe they are a person.
And then you'll have every major news outlet doing the education for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Real quick, I want to run through just some of the things that, again, there were a lot of people on the ground there, over 50 volunteers at one point or another. We probably had about 15 to 20 just full-time volunteers going on Thursday through Saturday. And they distributed over 7,000 of our pamphlets. We had around 3,000 just postcards, just kind of giving a quick summary of what equal protection is. They were also collecting signatures supporting our resolution priority planks. collecting signatures, which will then also give us email addresses for us to be able to follow up with people. Over 1,400 of those that they collected. We had a booth in the exhibitor hall. We were able to speak in the committees on the floor. We sent text messages to over 7,000 delegates in attendance, and some who maybe weren't in attendance who didn't come. And you know what? All that's going to bear fruit. I mean, I saw so many people reading the pamphlet, in different moments. I'd just be walking around. Lots of people reading our pamphlet. So many people had our stickers on them all over the place, more than any other sticker by far. And that was all great. And I just want to give credit where credit's due. That was all made possible first by our donors, who gave us the financial ability to be able to generate and to purchase and to print all of those resources, and kind of give us the ammunition for the battle there. And then to our volunteers, who then brought all that into the front lines, and got that out to people, and got that in people's hands, and got their information, and got stickers on them, and just did a terrific job. Did it with a terrific Christian attitude and with grace. And so I just want to give credit to them. And I've already told them this, but now I'm telling you this. A lot of fantastic people, including a big group from our friends at Free the States up in Oklahoma, that they came down here and helped out, along with many, many Texans as well. So we're super grateful for them, and a lot of the success we were able to have, that I think is going to continue to yield fruit for a long time, is because of them. So super grateful for them. Here's just a picture of just a few of them. There's so many running around. This is just some of them that we were able to get to stand still for a few moments. But we had great meetings, kind of getting everybody lined out, and just really had not just a lot of success last week, but really also just a really enjoyable time, just fellowshipping, both with our volunteers and then just lots of other Republicans from around the state that we were grateful for. So that kind of gets us. We're kind of coming up to the end of the story as far as what happened, as far as the priority. JR said we got the language that we wanted. We got it even stronger. That was then sent to the delegates on the floor. And Wes, you were on the floor then. So tell us what happened as far as the priority is concerned, and then also what happened with the planks.
Yeah. So the floor is always interesting, challenging, a lot of fun. And in fact, when we first started doing this in 2016, I had gone to a convention before that in 2014. That was my first convention in 2014, and I saw the floor fight and what they were doing. And you call it a floor fight. That's not a derogatory term. That's just what you call it when you get to the floor, because there's always somebody's fighting about something. But I saw that happen in 2014 with some gun rights issues, and I was like, wow, this is great. We need to do this with some abortion issues. We need to start pushing some abortion issues here. Honestly, what drew me to it was the opportunity to stand in front of 7,000 people and to basically preach the message of abolish abortion, of abolition. And that's what originally drew me to it. So every time we've done this for the last this is the fourth time. Every time we've done this, it's always exciting to me to go to the floor and to basically find something that we can use to tell people about abolition. Because a lot of people will intuitively agree with abolish abortion, but maybe what they mean by that is what a lot of our pro-life friends might mean by it. Oh yeah, we all agree that we want to end abortion eventually, but we can't do that yet because the culture is not ready yet. Whereas our position is no. When we say abolish abortion, we say abolition. We mean that is the strategy, right? We're not only talking about the end goal. We're actually talking about what we're seeking to do immediately. We want to make it a criminal action. It's homicide. So having said that, we went to the floor, and as always, things don't go according to plan. We had a bunch of people. We already had the language that we wanted, but what we did find there were some things in our platform that were quite disagreeable. There was a particular plank that we were going to move to strike that specifically called. If you read the language, I'm going to pull it up real quick here. If you read the language, what it said was that mothers were criminally immune, if you will. They're not. They're immune from prosecution. Sorry, I'm scrolling and trying to find this while I'm talking.
You want me to read it, brother? I have it right
Yeah,
here.
they were immune from prosecution for the way the language read, even if they were to kill their child and sell the baby's body parts. And I find that horrendously disagreeable. We should not be the party that in our planks says mothers are allowed to kill their children and sell the body parts. No, that's not us. That's Planned Parenthood. That's not Republican Party of Texas. That's Planned Parenthood. So we should not have that in our planks. And so we were going to make an attempt to strike that. And so it didn't. We had a bunch of people who were ready to speak to that. There are 7,000 people. Anybody who's a delegate is allowed to speak. It's generally can be somewhat chaotic. It can be chaotic. There are 4 microphones in a room of 7,000 people. You have to get to a mic if you want to talk. So we had people at every mic. Long story short, we were able to make our motion. And we were able to, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time to defend it because people had already moved to limit debate. And so we really only had 1 minute. We had one speaker who had 1 minute to make the argument. And it just, quite honestly, that's just not enough time. That is just not enough time to present your case from several different angles. So we lost that battle. But we were still able to get that 1 minute, although we stood in line for 4.5 hours to make our 1 minute argument. Hey, it was worth it. That's what we were there to do, was to look, we're about trying to change the culture now. We're not about waiting for the culture to change so that we can change the law. We're here to change the culture now. And there's no time like the present for justice. So that's what we were there to do. And so that was that was good. I was grateful that we were able to do that, even in the minuscule time that we had.
So
in addition to that, we also had the legislative priorities, which were also voted on. And so that actually occurred first. It wasn't supposed to, but it got rearranged by the body. That can happen. And so that vote was tallied, and then we ended up finding the results. Was it yesterday or day before yesterday?
Well, let me real fast before we get to that. So we, on that trying to strike Plank 216, what's interesting is that Plank 216, it talks about all these regulations of abortion, including, making it illegal for the abortionist, but not the mother. But it starts with until we can achieve the abolition of abortion, let's restrict and regulate abortion in these ways. It really implicitly saying that true abolition of abortion is not that. It's not just, outlawing assisted abortions. It's outlawing all abortions. And so that was, very, very telling there as well. So even though the language is still in there, it has some problematic things, really it just confirms that, yeah, restricting and regulating abortion and just outlawing some abortions or at certain points and things like that, that's not abolition. That's not abolishing abortion. So, we were trying to get that language out of there to make it less compromised. But JR, you wanted to weigh in there?
I was going to say, to be more clear, let's use the synonym, right? Murder, right? Abortion is murder, right? So until we can abolish abortion, we want to restrict and regulate murder. That's what we're saying. I mean, it's equivalent to 1850 saying, hey, until we can abolish slavery, this is how we want you to treat your slaves. And it's not that we want to focus on treating men as equal and freeing people. We want to tell you, hey, we want to keep regulating how you treat people while you still own them and steal them. And what the irony is the next plank, 217, is our abolition of abortion, which infers life begins at fertilization, and that we want to, assert the rights of individuals. So it's just inconsistent, and we gave it a good shot.
The great news is that there was some language that was some of the compromise language that we were able to help get off, in subcommittees, and then we got our planks that we were pushing for both ignoring Roe if the Supreme Court doesn't overturn it here in the next week, and then also equal protection that we were able to get in. So we already had ignore Roe plank. We had equal protection on the priorities, but now we also have equal protection in the planks. It's already part of the principle. So now it's all over the place now. So we're taking some serious ground here. There's still more ground to take, but we definitely made a lot of progress here. So then the 15 top proposed legislative priorities from the committee then go to the floor to the delegates, and then they vote. And the ones that get the top 8 that get the most votes then become the legislative priorities of the party. And so that happened at the end of Saturday, and here's the vote totals. You can see right here. And thankfully, abolish abortion made the top 8. It was number 6 of these 15, and it made the top 8. You can see there the number on the far left, 3. That's the number that the Legislative Priorities Committee ranked these items. But the delegates on the floor, in how they voted, they ranked them differently, and they ranked it number 6. That said, all 8 these top 8 all move on to the legislative priorities of the party, which you can find on the website, Texas GOP, and specifically the language that we were pushing for here: abolish abortion by ensuring the right to life and equal protection of the laws to all preborn children from the moment of fertilization, including adopting effective tools to ensure the enforcement of our laws to protect life when district attorneys fail to do so. Because there's possibility, hey, you pass a bill of abolition, and now you have district attorneys in certain counties that say, like, hey, I'm not going to enforce that. And so we want to make sure that there are ways that can be enforced effectively, to protect life when those district attorneys refuse to do that. So that's language that just makes that even stronger. And so we're grateful for that. I mean, really, the week was, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say it was the best convention we've ever had. Not only the end product, what we ended up with on the platform, the priorities, the principles of the party, even the chairman race for who the chairman of the party is, the chairman that had been elected, in the interim by the board of the party, after the other one resigned to run for another office. That chairman was reelected, with no opposition whatsoever. And guess what? He's taken our pledge. He's taken our pledge that includes supporting equal protection, our pledge that includes supporting a bill of abolition like HB 3326 from last session, and so he has pledged to support abolishing abortion. So, this is the first time we've had that. So it really is just victory after victory after victory that we're able to celebrate and give glory to God and thanks to our donors and to our volunteers and to our families who stood behind us and made it possible for us to go and to take a week off of work. To our coworkers who helped carry the ball for us for the week. We're just a lot of thanks all around to lots of people and ultimately to God. So we're grateful for all that. Guys, what else? What else have I not covered?
I have 2 questions for you, Bradley. First, so I heard a lot of delegates saying, and I'd like you as our resident constitutional lawyer to address this for our audience. Roe's about to be overturned. Texas has a trigger bill that's going to outlaw abortion. Haven't we already achieved the abolition of abortion if the Supreme Court comes back and overturns Roe?
I can't tell you, by the way, how many people told me that. I was doing some petitioning in the hallways. People were like, why would I sign this? Like, isn't abortion illegal? Literally thought that. And that was what actually fueled our desire to go to the floor even more and say, we got to say something that people understand that we had some people that morning, Saturday morning, who went to an abortion clinic in Houston before they came Saturday morning. And they had photos of the parking lot, right? Full of people there to get abortions.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah,
Right.
that's one of the reasons we wanted to go to the floor.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things I covered in my testimony to the committee is, hopefully Supreme Court's about to overturn Roe. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched, but hopefully they're going to do that here. Could be tomorrow. I know they're announcing some opinions tomorrow, but could be next week. Could be the week after. We'll see. But hopefully that's what they're going to do. But even if they do, abortion will not be abolished because even once the trigger bill goes into effect in Texas, or once we start enforcing the pre-Roe laws, um, all that's going to do is move the demand over to a new avenue, and that is it's only going to make it illegal for someone to assist with an abortion or for an abortionist to perform an abortion. I was talking to someone from a major pro-life organization today, actually, who said, over 52% of abortions are medication abortion now. And you can get those by mail, you can get those by going over the border, you can get those in lots of different ways. There's even lots of leftist magazines that are posting, here's how to mix up your own do-it-yourself abortion, medication. And unfortunately, under our laws in Texas, all of that is legal. There's nothing illegal about that. It is perfectly legal under Texas law for mothers to take medication to kill their babies. It's perfectly legal under current Texas law for mothers to mix up poisons to kill their babies. And so what's going to happen, with this demand? Well, I mean, we already see it happening. We've passed the Heartbeat Act in Texas, and that's sent people, they're going to other states and other things. But in addition to that, you're seeing a whole lot more what are called self-induced abortions or self-managed abortions, where they're just getting the medication and doing it at home in the comfort of their own home. And that's still just as deadly for the baby, and it's even more dangerous for the mother. So is that really what we want? Do we really want to push mothers more into committing, you know, more dangerous abortions, more dangerous for themselves, but just as dangerous for the baby? Is that really our goal? Is just make abortion, just get rid of abortion clinics and everybody just does it at home on their own. They just do a little telehealth visit with somebody and then they just get the medication at home, or they order it from some mail order thing or online, or go across the border to get it, or they mix it up. I mean, is that really what we want? No, it's not. I mean, that's not equal protection of the laws, right? You can't do that to a born person. I can't. It's like, well, I can kill, this person over here as long as nobody helps me do it. Like, really? That's really the law. That's certainly not equal protection of the laws. But unfortunately, that is the law in Texas. So that's why we need. It's not going to stop, right? We're not going to outlaw abortion, even if the Supreme Court overturns Roe. It's just going to take the demand and it's going to push it elsewhere. And yeah, our current laws that we have, I believe, will reduce the number of abortions, and I pray that they do. But we can't just pat ourselves on the back just because, hey, now we've legalized do-it-yourself abortions. That's not. I don't think that should be any of our goals. That's not justice, and that's not equal protection of our laws. That's not treating a fetus like like a person, right? We don't do that with a 10-day-old baby. Why a 10-week-old baby? From gestation. So so that's something. Jr., did you say you had another question?
Yeah, this is kind of a leading question, but I'm sure our viewers are thinking the same thing. So great, Bradley. We now have abolition of abortion as one of our top legislative priorities. Haven't we had that for the last two legislative sessions? And it only took one Republican chairman in the state of Texas to kill our bill. What's going to be different about the 2023 legislative session, and what can our viewers do to help abolish abortion in Texas?
Yeah, well, we've actually had for 3 sessions now. We had HB 948 in 2017, HB 896 in 2019, HB 3326 in 2021. And yeah, every single session, guess who has killed the bill? A Republican, professing pro-life committee chairmen every single session. We had Byron Cook, then Jeff Leach, and then this last time Stephanie Click. But one thing that I think will be different going into 2023 is that Stephanie Click had an opponent who made abolition a central part of his campaign, and she had to answer for that. And she didn't win, didn't win outright in the initial primary election. Had to go to a runoff against the abolitionist candidate David Lowe, and she had to spend her and the group supporting her spent way over $1 million. I think probably set records for Texas House race, to defend her and to defend her record, which included killing the bill to abolish abortion. So I think that committee chairs are going to be thinking twice about doing something like that again, or at least they're going to try to be sneakier about how they do it next time. And this is all part of the movement, and that is we have to bring the pressure upon these legislators to do the right thing, to follow the Constitution, and protect life from the moment of fertilization. And we do that by getting involved. We need to be able to mobilize more people to hold these legislators accountable and to let people know what's going on, because a lot of people don't even know what's happening. They would be aghast, that Republican pro-life legislators are killing bills of abolition. So, if you're not already on our email list, you can go to abolishworkintx.org and sign up for our email list there so that you can stay up to date about what's going on to abolish abortion and be ready to take action when you can, and let these legislators know where you want them to stand. They're not this last time they didn't even give our bill a hearing. That's how much they were scared of it. They refused to even let us come and talk about it, much less support it. And so that's hopefully that changes next time. But if it's going to change, we need more people supporting this, more people waking up, speaking out, and telling their legislators what they need them to do and what they want them to do to protect life. Guys, y'all have anything else?
No, I just want to echo what you've already said, Bradley. I'm very blessed to have participated with the delegates and volunteers. Very blessed for our donors who weren't able to necessarily give time, but were able to give to donate in order to equip us with the tools we needed to spread the message of equal protection for our preborn neighbor. And I'm just humbled and grateful to see that that the Overton window is shifting, and we are gaining ground without compromise.
Yeah. Amen. And that's what we're called to do. We're not called to predict the future, or to accept the current reality. We're called to be faithful to God, and then He will create the reality that we should have. But we're called to be faithful, and when we do that, we know He's going to bless it, and He's continued to bless it ever since we've started doing this back in 2016. We're seeing more and more fruits of that blessing. Then we just pray as we move toward this next legislative session that we're going to see even more blessing. And we pray in the meantime, hopefully the Supreme Court overturns Roe, and it makes that even easier to make the true abolition of abortion a reality in Texas. So as we close here, after we sign off, we're going to put up a QR code that will take you to a page where you can sign the petition to support our resolution. Yeah, the convention is already over, but if you sign the petition, it will show your support for the new legislative priority, and it will also sign you up onto our email list. And if you put in your phone number, you get our text message alerts, which we try to be respectful of you, not to send too many out unless there really is something urgent. And so please, I'm going to put the QR code up. If you're on if you're on your computer, you can just take a picture of it with your phone or hold your phone up to it and click the link and go sign that. If you're on your phone, you can actually just take a screenshot of it and then click that, and it'll take you to that. And you'll be able to sign that petition. So, I just want to sign off just by saying, it's been wonderful to work with both of you, with our other board member, Christopher Youngblood. Grateful for our many donors, many volunteers, and ultimately we give credit to God. He's who gives us strength, and we're again grateful for our families who supported us and backed us and made all this possible. But thank y'all. We look forward to giving you another update. Hopefully very soon, an update about what the Supreme Court does. Hopefully we'll be back on with these live streams very soon with that. But in the meantime, thank y'all for joining us, and y'all have a good night.
Good night, guys.